We talk about hormone cycles all the time,
Oh,
right? But usually it's about women. Turns out men have them too.
oh yeah, definitely.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into testosterone.
Okay.
We've got this Psychology Today article. It's called The Testosterone Cycle.
Mhm.
And we're going to uncover some surprising stuff about how these cycles actually influence behavior.
You know, it's fascinating how often we kind of overlook the whole cyclical nature of male biology.
Right.
So this deep dive is really going to kind of challenge that assumption, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that really stood out to me in this article was the idea that men's testosterone production actually peaks in the summer, which is kind of interesting because we tend to think about like mating seasons with animals,
Right.
like deer in the fall.
Yeah.
But for humans, it seems like there's a different pattern going on.
Right. It's not about like antlers and rutting,
Right.
but that summer peak in testosterone does seem to have some interesting correlations. The article actually uses a really cool analogy to kind of explore the connection between testosterone and aggression
Okay.
in the animal kingdom, and it talks about birds.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this bird connection.
Well, think about territorial birds, right? Like
Yeah.
blackbirds or purple martins
Mm,
during breeding season in the spring,
yeah.
when testosterone is surging, they're like fiercely defending their territory, singing loudly,
Right.
almost like a warning to rivals.
Oh, that beautiful bird song we hear in the spring is actually a testosterone-fueled turf war.
Haha, exactly.
That's a different way to look at it.
It is. And what's interesting is if we look at humans,
Okay.
we see a similar pattern. Violent crimes in men actually peak between the ages of 15 and 35,
Oh, wow.
which coincides with when their testosterone levels are highest.
So is the article saying that testosterone directly causes aggression and violence in men?
It's a complex issue, and the article actually acknowledges the debate
Go on.
among psychologists. While some researchers, particularly those studying rats, kind of push back against like a direct causal link,
Mm-hmm.
there is evidence that surging testosterone is likely a contributing factor
Okay.
to aggression,
Got it.
among other things.
Right. It's like there's this recipe for trouble,
Yeah.
youth-high testosterone, and potentially other factors that we don't fully understand yet.
For sure.
But testosterone isn't all about aggression, right?
No, not at all.
It also plays a major role in sex drive.
Absolutely. And the article brings in some pretty vivid examples from the animal world to illustrate this point.
Okay, like what?
We're talking like elephant seals battling it out for dominance,
Yeah.
red deer locking horns during mating season,
Wow.
and even elephants going through must.
Hold on, must. What is that?
So must is this intense period in male elephants
Okay.
where their testosterone levels skyrocket,
Oh, wow.
sometimes increasing up to like 60 times their normal level.
Wow.
It's like this supercharged mating frenzy
Oh, my gosh.
where they become incredibly aggressive and competitive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The article even like references camels frothing at the mouth in that movie Tracks,
Uh-huh.
just to like paint a picture of this testosterone-fueled intensity.
Okay, that's quite an image, but I get the point.
Yeah,
High testosterone equals high sex drive.
exactly.
And we see this across different species.
Precisely, just like many male animals, men experience a peak in sex drive during their younger years when testosterone is at its highest, and as they age,
Yeah.
we see a decline in both testosterone and sex drive.
Okay, so we've got this summer peak in testosterone.
Right.
And we know it's linked to aggression and sex drive.
Yeah.
But how does this actually play out in our daily lives?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the real-world implications of these cycles?
Well, this is where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
The article points out that violent crimes, including sexual assaults, actually tend to be more common in the summer.
That's a pretty startling statistic. So are they saying there's basically a testosterone-driven summer crime wave?
Not necessarily. It's important to consider other factors, too.
Yeah.
The article actually debunks that simple explanation that, like, warmer weather means more people are just out and about,
Right.
creating more opportunities for crime.
Yeah, that makes sense. More people at the park equals more chances for a phone to get stolen or something.
Exactly. But here's the key detail.
Okay.
Nonviolent crimes don't shit in that same summer peak.
Hmm.
Things like vandalism or petty theft, they don't suddenly spike just because it's sunny out.
Interesting.
This suggests that there's something else going on with violent crimes,
Okay.
and testosterone is a likely suspect.
That's a really compelling argument.
Yeah.
But here's where I get a little confused.
Okay.
If testosterone and sex drive are highest in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't we logically expect to see more births in the spring?
Right. 9 months later.
Exactly.
It's a reasonable assumption
Yeah.
based on what we've talked about.
Yeah.
But that's not actually what happens.
Really. So when are the most babies born?
Surprisingly, in the U.S., more babies are born in the summer months,
Hmm.
meaning conception is more likely to happen during the winter.
Okay, so that doesn't line up with the summertime testosterone peak.
It doesn't. It's a bit of a mystery.
Yeah.
And the article admits that there's no clear explanation,
Right.
This pattern doesn't really align with what we see in like seasonally breeding mammals.
Mm-hmm.
And researchers haven't really figured out a definitive reason for it.
So why are we seeing more summer births if it's not directly tied to testosterone?
Well, one possible explanation the article suggests is that summer births might be beneficial for babies with weaker immune systems.
Okay.
Being born during warmer months lets them avoid those harsh winter illnesses.
Right,
But-
when they're most vulnerable.
Exactly.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not just about testosterone, but also about, like, maximizing a baby's chances of survival. This whole birth peak mystery just really highlights how much we still don't know about human biology.
It definitely raises more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But one thing is clear, this deep dive is really pushing us to think beyond those traditional assumptions about male biology
Yeah.
and behavior.
You're right. It's a reminder that men, just like women, experience hormonal cycles that can actually influence their psychology
Mhm.
and actions.
And that can be a really tough concept for some people to kind of grasp,
Oh, yeah?
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of clashes with our ideas about free will and choice.
Right.
But the science seems to be pointing to a more nuanced understanding of how our biology shapes who we are.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're all riding these hormonal roller coasters, even if we're not always aware of it.
I know. And we haven't even touched on the daily testosterone cycle yet.
That's right. The article mentions that testosterone actually peaks in the morning.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
I think we need a moment to let all of this sink in. But before we do, what exactly does that daily testosterone peak mean for us,
Yeah.
in our everyday lives?
Well,
It's funny how we tend to think of mornings as that time for, like, productivity and focus.
right. Coffee emails, all that rise and grind stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if that, like, burst of energy we feel each morning,
Mm-hmm.
that drive to get things done, is actually tied to that testosterone surge?
Okay, now that's a really interesting thought.
Yeah.
It's like our biology is giving us this little push
Right.
to get stuff done.
It makes you wonder how much of what we consider like personality or even drive
Sure.
is actually rooted in these subtle hormonal shifts throughout the day.
So are you saying we should all, like, become hyper aware of our testosterone levels and plan our days around it?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's probably not realistic
Right.
or even necessary to be constantly tracking those levels.
Okay.
But I do think that having a general awareness of these patterns could be super helpful.
Mm.
Maybe it could help us understand why we feel more energetic or maybe even more irritable. Yeah.
At certain times.
Or why we might be more inclined to take risks or, seek out adventure
Right.
during those summer months when testosterone is peaking.
Exactly. And, this knowledge could have implications in a lot of different areas of life.
Yeah, like what?
Think about the workplace, for example.
Okay, so are you saying we should be scheduling all our important meetings for, like, the afternoon when testosterone levels have maybe dipped a bit?
Uh-huh. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Or, maybe we could structure work schedules to better align with those natural peaks and dips
Okay.
in energy and focus throughout the day.
It sounds like you're proposing we need, like, hormone-informed workplaces.
I kind of like that term.
Yeah.
It might sound a little out there, but it's really just about working with our biology
Right.
rather than against it.
I like that.
And this type of thinking could also extend beyond the workplace, too.
Okay. Or else.
What about relationships?
Okay, now that's a tricky one.
Are you suggesting we start scheduling date nights based on testosterone cycles?
No, not exactly. But
Yeah.
I do think that understanding these hormonal fluctuations
Mhm.
could help us navigate the ups and downs of relationships with a bit more compassion
Right.
and understand.
So instead of getting frustrated when your partner is suddenly, more argumentative,
Right.
you might recognize that it could be a hormonal thing,
Exactly.
not necessarily personal.
It's not about making excuses for bad behavior,
Right.
but just having a more nuanced understanding of what might be influencing it.
It's about recognizing that we're all biological beings
Yeah.
and our hormones are part of that whole dance,
Exactly. And this brings us back to that core message of this whole deep dive.
which is
Men are cyclical too.
it's a powerful reminder that we're all a lot more complex than we often realize.
We are.
Our bodies and minds are constantly interacting.
Mm.
And these hormonal cycles are just one example of that, that intricate interplay.
The more we understand about these cycles,
The better equipped we'll be to navigate our own lives,
Mm.
our relationships, and even our understanding of ourselves.
It's all about embracing that complexity, the ebbs and flows,
Yeah.
recognizing that even something as seemingly simple as testosterone
Right.
can have a profound effect on how we behave and who we are.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that the broader societal implications here.
Okay, you're talking about how we live in a world that's basically structured around a very linear,
Right.
non-cyclical view of human behavior.
Exactly. What if we actually started incorporating this understanding of biological rhythms into our institutions, our laws, our education systems? Imagine the possibilities.
That's a massive question.
It is.
And one that we're probably not going to solve in this episode.
True.
But it is a question worth thinking about.
It is. If we know that these testosterone cycles have such a significant impact on behavior,
Yeah.
should we be taking that into account when we design our societies?
It's like we're starting to see the world through a whole new lens.
One that acknowledges the powerful influence of biology and hormones and
Yeah, and it's cycles.
and who knows what other fascinating insights are waiting to be discovered
Right.
as we continue to explore this uncharted territory.
Well, that's a great segue to our final thought for today. We've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
You know, we've explored the peaks and valleys of testosterone,
Yeah.
its links to aggression and sex drive, even those fascinating but kind of baffling birth patterns.
Right.
But before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with something to really ponder.
A final thought to spark some continued reflection.
Yeah.
I like it.
So we've talked about these testosterone cycles and their influence on behavior and even those societal implications.
Right.
But if we know that testosterone levels have this pretty big impact on men, should we be factoring this knowledge into how we actually structure our societies,
Ooh.
our workplaces,
Okay.
even our personal lives?
That's a powerful question. It challenges us to really rethink those assumptions, you know?
Yeah. About how we organize our world?
Right.
Like, what would it look like
Yeah.
to create environments that are more in sync with our natural biological rhythms?
Right. Imagine a world where things like school schedules or work days were designed to actually leverage those morning testosterone peaks,
Yeah.
those moments of like heightened energy and focus,
It's interesting.
or where we were just more comfortable having open conversations about how hormonal shifts might be affecting,
Right.
our relationships and interactions.
Yeah. It might sound radical, but it's definitely a fascinating concept to explore.
It is.
Like, could we actually harness our understanding of biology
Yeah.
to create a more balanced and harmonious way of life?
It's definitely something to think about. Maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive on, hormone-optimized societies or something.
Right.
But for now, we've given you a lot to digest.
We have.
I hope this deep dive has opened your eyes to the complexity of the human experience, especially when it comes to something as seemingly straightforward as testosterone.
Absolutely. We're all these, like, incredibly intricate systems constantly being influenced by forces that we don't always see or fully understand.
Right.
But, the more we learn, the more we can really
Yeah.
appreciate just how interconnected it all is.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those deep dives going.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic that's sure to challenge your assumptions and spark your curiosity.